Hello and welcome to the third installment of the video series initiated by the Policy Matrix. In this series, we interview public policy experts to understand the nuances of their journey in the immense and sometimes daunting field of public policy. The aim of this initiative is to bridge the gap between policy experts and policy enthusiasts. Hi, my name is Arunima Cheruvathoor. I am a second year political science student at Lady Shri Ram College for Women, Delhi University, and today I am here having a conversation with Ms. Pooja Bhatia. Pooja Bhatia is an alumni of Lady Shri Ram College for Women and Jawaharlal Nehru University. She is a public policy professional with 3 years of experience in legislative research, political consultancy, public policy, advocacy, and the social development sector. She has worked as a research associate at ProAct in the office of Mr. Derek O'Brien, Member of Parliament, and also as a research intern in the office of Mr. Ninong Ering, Minister of Parliament from Arunachal Pradesh. She is currently the senior researcher at Save Life Foundation, an NGO working in order to improve safety in emergency medical care in the country. Ms. Pooja Bhatia, we are so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, Arunima. Likewise, it's a pleasure being here.
All right, so Ms. Bhatia, what I have in mind for this interview is that I have come up with 4 questions for you to help the viewers necessarily have a more nuanced understanding of your journey in the realm of public policy. So my first question for you today is, what inspired you to work in the field of public policy and advocacy?
I'd say my passion towards working in the social development sector and an utter disdain for corporate culture and profit making sort of pushed me into working into this sector in the public policy field. A life-changing moment was for me personally was when Mr. P. Sainath came to college in LSR to deliver a lecture on farmer suicides and inequalities, and he screened this documentary on farmer suicides and inequalities, and which the documentary ended with the statement that said, "We're all Nero's guests." And I think somewhere something changed in me that day when I was watching that, because I chose not to be Nero's guest, not to be a bystander when your country is burning, not to be an armchair activist who just sits behind a social media platform and criticizes the government and finds faults with other things. So I think there was a strong urge in me to contribute positively to the development of the country or whatever was happening. Also, I would say I have a flair for writing. I really enjoy writing and expressing myself, and this sector sort of rewards you if you can express yourself coherently and well. There is a lot of drafting and writing involved in public policy. So I think put everything together, that's what really pushes me to bring about some sort of transformation, to contribute positively to some sort of transformation that's happening.
It's so great to hear from a faculty of LSR that they too have decided to reject the corporate structure, and it sounds amazing from the way that you describe it. But going on to the second question, what are some of the challenges that you face in your field and how do you overcome them? Do you think that the field of public policy has evolved to become a safe environment for women? And do you think your identity as a woman affects how you can operate in the realm of public policy and advocacy in India?
That's a really good question. That kind of sets your thinking. In terms of challenges, I would say that one challenge is that it requires a lot of time and patience. This sector requires you to be very persistent in your efforts. It requires a lot of perseverance and hard work and a lot of patience. For instance, if you're working on a particular bill, and for the bill to get drafted, to get sort of to have a consensus around it, to be moved in the legislature, to finally become an act, and then the implementation of that bill to happen takes years. For instance, I'll tell you the Motor Vehicles Amendment Act that we've all been working on now, especially for its implementation among states and center. That took almost 4 years to navigate this journey from a bill to an act. So if you do not have patience and perseverance, then you might just feel like the sector is not for me, and what am I doing here? So that is one challenge I feel in terms of the time constraint. You really need to give in a lot of time and energy to the sector. The other challenge I feel is sort of geographical or location, like a location limitation, I would say. That is, most of government work happens in Delhi. Delhi is the center for business and power. So if you're working with the central government and you're located in any other part of the city, you will end up spending a lot of time in just commute. And for you to build relationships For you to build steady, strong relationships with government stakeholders, you really need to be in Delhi, because most of your policy conferences happen here. Most of your big NGOs work here. All your policy work, all your bureaucracy takes place here. So I think that would be one constraint for you to work from some other part of the city or to work remotely. The third challenge I would say is also linked with the government, because you need to spend a lot of time in rapport building. Your main stakeholder in the public policy field is the government. It is bureaucrats, it is ministers, politicians. So a lot of times this has happened that you spend a lot of time building rapport with the person, with an official of a particular department, and then with the change in power, that person gets posted to some other place or gets shifted to another department, and then you almost like Sisyphus and his rock, start from scratch and you start rolling the rock all over again. So that is one challenge. It kind of frustrates you. But if you can overlook all of that and if you do your homework well, then it's also very satisfying and rewarding. So those three, I think, are the challenges that are like on top of my head. In terms of the question on women that you asked, I feel like the public policy and advocacy field is now gradually changing, and a lot of women are entering it and also in return changing the field in their own ways. I'll explain how. Firstly, I feel that it's a very progressive field, it's a very transformative field, and it's an equal opportunity field. Doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man, if you have something to articulate, if you have something to pitch, it rewards you, irrespective of your gender. The other thing is that women also bring to the table something very positive. That is, I have noticed women come with a very different sense of leadership. Women's leadership models are built more towards consensus building, towards more cooperative methods rather than individualistic methods that were preferred by men. And this sector sort of requires that. So if you're a young woman who thinks she can contribute to the social development sector, I would really encourage and urge you, I would really urge more and more women to come and join this sector, because it's not just that the sector is changing on its own, it's changing because women are pushing it towards that change. And I think women's leadership models is what the sector requires right now. That is exactly what we need, these cooperative power sharing models. Another observation I would like to make, Arunima, is this something I have noticed, that even within the government, you have a lot of general stereotypes. These are very societal stereotypes that I don't see only in the government, that can happen in any other sector. For instance, if I have to go for a government meeting, should I wear a kurta? Should I dress in Indian clothes? Or should I wear a formal? Should I wear a jeans or a shirt? Because I remember, so it's something so ingrained in us that I have to check myself individually. It might not play out as such, but I always have to, double check myself that, if I have a meeting in the government, it's better if I, dress a little conservatively, just wear a kurta, because you might never know where the bureaucrat stands and how things might play out, and you don't want to put things at stake because of how you dress or look or speak. So I think that is one constraint that women face all the time. It's an image building sort of a thing. The other I feel is that there are a lot of sectors and departments which have hitherto been considered feminine, and there are other departments which are considered masculine within the government. So if you have, say, the Department of Women and Child, or the Department of Health, Environment, these will always sort of, they sound like, they're soft government issues which need to be headed by women ministers, and, sort of women do better here. And there are other departments like, say, defense, transport, tourism, the power sector, which people think are more masculine and require like a man heading it. I think women are slowly breaking these stereotypes, because I have been working in the transport sector for a year now. We work on road safety, and so we have to work with transport, shipping, and all of that. And I think women entering these fields also breaks that stereotype that these are masculine, hard, power-oriented fields, which are not very conducive to women. But there is nothing like that. I mean, I completely enjoy working in the transport sector as much as I enjoyed working on gender and health previously. So yeah, I mean, I hope I answered that.
Yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. Your idea that these stereotypes that exist within these certain sectors can actually be broken if women are to go ahead and join, because they bring a very different narrative to the table that otherwise may be excluded, right? The fact that lived experiences of women more often than not are very different, and the idea that that public policy is more of an equitable platform and field is actually pretty interesting, because I didn't know that that was the case, because as a student, I mean, I don't really have much experience. So I mean, it sounds like a pretty a pretty equal platform to go ahead and enter. So that sounds great. So going on to my next question, which is kind of linked to this, what was your journey to reaching the senior researcher position at Save Life Foundation like? What would you recommend to college students who wish to pursue a path similar to yours?
Uh, I mean, I spent quite a lot of time contemplating on what I wanted to do. So, I mean, just to take you through that journey. So I studied political science, public policy, and international relations for 5 years. And then there was a point after masters, I got completely saturated with academics, and I had to take a call on whether I want to pursue MPhil PhD, or whether I want to do something else, or whether I want to start working right away. I think I did something unconventional in terms of Indian sensibilities, because I took a gap year, which was like very alarmist to my parents at that time. And in general, I mean, Indian students are not, um, encouraged to take gap years to figure out what they want to do. It's still a very Western American centric concept. So I think I just took a gap year and I thought, I'll figure out whatever I want to do. And for 1.5 years, I think I tried my hand at UPSC and I hated it. I completely knew that I'm not built for bureaucracy at all. I didn't enjoy the syllabus. I didn't enjoy the disciplinarian regime that it brings with it for you to just sit at home and study, because I'm not that kind of person. So I completely hated that, but I experimented with it. So I gave my UPSC exams and it bombed like miserably. Then I started doing freelancing. So I used to write a lot of articles with newspapers and online journals and magazines. So I was interning with the New Name for a while, and I was their Kolkata correspondent. So I was covering governance issues in Calcutta. Then I was a feature editor with Youth Ki Awaaz. So I started writing to them. Then I was writing for other News Central or other publications. Whatever came my way, basically I started picking up smaller freelance work. Then I think a breakthrough I reached was when I started working with Pragati Sangha. It's an NGO that's based in West Bengal. And I got to visit Sundarbans and organize health camps there. So that was my first hands-on experience as to how governance issue looks in the real world, because I was this idealistic young girl right out of college, wanting to make a change. And that's where I realized that it takes a lot of hard work and patience, because change cannot happen overnight. And I was working with the BSF and CRPF and managing government relations and also doing media management for the NGO. So there was a lot of social media advocacy and communication, and we were working on gender and health in Sundarban. So I realized from a governance point of view, their problems are very different. So we were also urging women to take to menstrual hygiene and all of that. So that was a good stint for me. That worked out really well. I got a good hands-on experience. Then I started working with Mr. Ninong Ering, as you mentioned in the introduction. He's a lovely person to work with. He was an MP with an INC back then. I also got a hang of how governance issues are articulated in the Northeast through him, because he organized a visit for us to Arunachal Pradesh. And I was also working on women's leadership models and how drug trafficking works in the Arunachal Pradesh region and in the Northeast in general. So I did a paper for him on that. Then I started working with Mr. Derek O'Brien and the Trinamool Congress. That was again a very rewarding process. So I worked with two opposition MPs basically, an MP from the INC and an MP with the Trinamool Congress. So I learned about regional federalism and how these models work. And I also, fortunately for me, when I was working with Mr. Derek O'Brien, so I was handling his parliament-related work in Delhi in his office. But I also got to visit Calcutta and do some sort of political consultancy. So I was doing a campaign on how to encourage first-time voters to come out and vote in the 2014 Lok Sabha elections. So I got to understand how elections work in states, how elections work, how state-center relationships work, and all of that. And then finally, after my stint of working with opposition MPs, I'm now finally working with the government. So that is a completely different experience for me. And I'm working in a sector which is very new to me, which is the transport sector. And that has also been very challenging and very rewarding in other ways. Because now with the Motor Vehicles Amendment Act being passed, we are figuring out how this can be pushed, how the Good Samaritan Act can be implemented in states, how can we ask, not only how can we build more awareness and consensus around these issues, but how can we see that, seamless technological changes can help in better enforcement of that. So all of that. So that has pretty much been my journey. And in terms of recommending this journey to other people, I think I'm going to sound very philosophical right now. when I say that I don't think you can recommend your path to anybody else, because that is completely your path, your life, for you to chart whatever you want to do. Because I can never put myself into somebody else's shoes. This is what I chose for myself through my own experiences, through my own pros and cons and feelings and weaknesses or whatever, shortcomings. So I would urge people to explore public policy and have their own experiences, and chart their own path basically. I mean, my path can be an example for someone, but I would never ask somebody to, follow exactly what I did, because it might not work out for somebody else.
From your experiences, I mean, you make your entire career in public policy seem like something that was operating very parallel to the theory that I think most of us learned in like college. So that was very interesting to like definitely hear about. And from what I can tell is that, like you said, public policy seems to be for people who, number one, are extremely patient, and number two, and apart from that, number two, have that degree of perseverance that I think is inherently the job requires. So my fourth and last question to you is, how do you think that the field of public policy will get affected given the extraordinary circumstances of the pandemic we are in? How do you think this will affect the future job prospects of students wishing to pursue public policy?
I think that's a mixed bag, because this is sort of a new thing, and the whole world is grappling with it. It's not just us or public policy; it's all sectors. They're equally grappling with this. But I think in the government, it takes more of a shift in behavioral change. I mean, they need a shift in mentality, because governments have always been very obtuse to technology and its use. So this entire idea of work from home, and for bureaucrats to do their file work or paperwork at home, is, I think, very new. But I think the key, like in every other sector, is adaptability. Governments will have to adapt to the new challenges, and I am somebody who firmly believes that every crisis presents with it an opportunity. So even in the public policy sector, I think this is a good opportunity for us to assess what are the creative ways in which we can pursue policy. Maybe we can have digital advocacy now. We can have webinars. We can have government stakeholders talk to us on an e-conference or an e-consultation process. So I think it's a good time for us to come together and reimagine our ways of work, and get out of our old habits, and maybe stem into new sorts of thinking. But for somebody who will be taking to this sector now, I think it's sort of tricky. You will have to navigate your way. I say that the reason is that fundings are getting curtailed. So even though you might come out with creative ways of doing things, but I heard a couple of days back that I think the central government announced that some of the schemes might be put on hold for a while. So new schemes will not be announced anytime soon. So if your new schemes are not rolling in, that means a lot of plans and projects are going to get a setback, and your funding, there'll be a huge funding crunch. So in terms of resources and work, there might be a crunch. But for people who are already pursuing it, I think it's a great time to reimagine not only how we work, but also reach out to the government in newer ways.
Thank you so much, Ms. Pooja Bhatia. The way that you sold the entire narrative of public policy. I mean, as someone who was a little hesitant about it, I'm completely interested in pursuing a career in public policy now. And especially your entire view about how it's an equitable platform, especially for women, and can actually be used as a tool for women to go ahead and empower themselves. I think that is a fresh narrative that I, as a student, have definitely not heard before. So that's great. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today. This was our third video in the video series. So stay tuned for more. We will be uploading more videos soon. And thank you again, Ms. Pooja Bhatia, for joining us in this conversation. And I hope you have a nice day.
Thank you